Always, always, always a blessing to be with friends who share what God has done and what God is doing. And that is what Aimee Nelson does on a regular basis in my life. So I couldn't help but invite her here to the Journey to Peace podcast so you can experience that too. Aimee is a Bible teacher. She's a coach as well. She's the founder and CEO of Hope with You, Mom. And I'm so glad to welcome you back, Aimee. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, thank you, Bridget. It's always a joy for me to come and sit with you. You know that. If you ask, Lord willing, the creek don't rise. I'm coming, and It's a joy for me to be with you, friend. Thank you.
Always a joy for me as well. And we last time we talked about a topic that I think we can continue on really, but maybe
Mm,
take it from a different angle in your
okay.
life. And that topic or that theme is, how do we find peace when life doesn't go according to plan?
Mm,
And it was just, oh boy, has it been about a year and a half now, Aimee,
yes.
that that
Yeah.
that yeah, I remember
Yeah.
being at the celebration of life ceremony
Mm,
for Pastor Daryl
yep.
Nelson, and it impacted me so much to see the
Aw.
people that came to celebrate with you, celebrate his life, but also to remember. And in particular, the thing that stuck out to me the most was when you all played the video of the ending of a sermon that Pastor Dale gave. I don't think it was that long before,
It wasn't.
yeah, he said goodbye to us on this side of heaven. And he talked
That's right.
about how as long as he was able to point others to Jesus, it would have been
Yes.
worth it. And he just
Yes.
kept talking about, don't see me, see Jesus, don't see
That's
me,
right.
see Jesus. And
He
that's
did.
really how he lived his life, wasn't it?
Sure did. He sure did. Bridget, I remember saying that night to people, I said, clearly we're here at this service to celebrate a man who loved God way more than he loved any of us. And I really do mean that. Daryl loved the Lord. And I tell people, it's not that I'm saying that he's perfect, because I tell people he got on my reserve nerve, but he loved the Lord with his whole heart, the Lord, his family, and his church.
Mm.
And it exuded in his life that almost, I think they said over 500 people were there that night, Bridget, too, because their sanctuary holds over 8, and they said almost well over 500 people were there that night. And I remember, Bridget, when he spoke and he preached that message, I remember sitting in the car and I said, why would you say that? I said, because when he preached it that day, I felt it.
Mhm.
I felt like he was saying that was his final charge. And I said to him, why would you say it like that, Daryl? And he said, Aimee, it's how I felt, and God told me to say it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if he was writing a message, Daryl wrote out every message he ever preached, handwritten in a notebook. We have every message from his first to his last in notebooks. Yes. And he said, as I was writing it, I felt the Lord told me to make sure I say that in that message. And he meant it. He said, I don't care if they don't know my name, as long as what I do get people to heaven. And he meant that.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
First of all, what a treasure to have all of his sermons, just what he
Yes, it
really
is.
poured over and labored over to share with
Mm-hmm.
God's people, every Sunday. His
Yes,
word that you have, that is such a treasure.
it is.
Well, it was unexpected. You didn't want to
Yeah.
hear him talk like that at, one of his
No.
last sermons. And I
Nope.
know you didn't want to say goodbye. And you weren't even expecting to say goodbye, were you, when
No.
you did?
Not like that, because Daryl had that Wednesday, he had gone to get treatment, and me, Marcia, and her husband, and Daryl and I, we were together, and we had food, and we were eating, we were talking. And when I took him into the hospital, it was because he was dehydrated severely. And they were like, no, just bring him in and we'll give him some fluids. I'm like, okay, great. That Monday, he talked to me, he spoke to me. But when I went back that Monday afternoon, he was no longer responsive.
Wow.
Just yeah,
And
Daryl had cancer.
yes, I was going to say, a little
Yes,
bit more context for those who don't
yes,
know that he was
yes,
battling cancer,
yes.
but again, you all felt like it was something that was
It was
under,
being managed.
yeah, it was being managed. So you
Yes,
weren't
we were
you weren't
not
expecting.
expected, not at all. Not when I tell you, I was like, wait, what? what? And so to even hear them say he came in talking and now he's not, ma'am, that's a problem. And that's when they began to say, we need to do further testing. And they came back. It was so quick. And they said, 3 weeks. And I'm like, what do you mean? They said 3 weeks, but God gave us, between that time they made that announcement, God gave us 3, 4 days. And
Oh.
Daryl said goodbye. His purpose here was done. Now, what I didn't know until later on, I had gone out the Friday before I took him to the hospital. I had gone out to take my two boys. I went out to go run some errands for them. I left them here with Daryl. They were hanging out with their dad. Bridget, they told me that Daryl called them in the room and said, my final words to you are, there's one Lord, there's one faith, and there's one baptism. You stay in the unity of the faith. You stick close to the Lord. He called his sons to his chair and gave them a final word. I didn't find that out until later.
Mm.
When we realized, because it was so traumatic, the boys said that's what their dad told them
Wow.
till his last breath, Bridget.
Mm. And it's amazing how sometimes we can get a sense. We may not want to, believe it, but that we can get a sense that,
Yes.
time is short. And the truth is, for all of us, we
Mm-hmm.
really don't know the day or the time God's going to call us home.
Sure
It's
don't,
all
Bridget.
in different ways, but none of us know. So to live our life with intention, what
Come
an
on.
example he gave us, and your
Mm-hmm.
family, especially in his church family. He left
Yes.
such an example about living with intention because we forget that. We think I've got all the time in the world. I'm young or whatever the case may be. Even if we're older, we
Yes.
still sometimes just don't think it's going to happen to us anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. We think we have eternity or we think we've got longevity. And Daryl was like, you can think what you want to think as long as you're in love with Jesus and serving him. That was really his perspective. I tell people all the time, I said, we go in the grocery store, or either I'd be waiting in the car. I'm like, honey, you go in the grocery store, I wait. Like, why? He went there to get sugar. What is going? He'd come out telling me he's talked to someone. And I said to him one day, I said, man, I said, boy, you would talk to a chicken if it would talk back. And he said, if it's about sharing the gospel, I sure would. Every opportunity he had, Bridget. And I looked at my neighbors. So many of them have surrounded the kids and I, helping us with different things here at the house. And I have to say, that's because of Daryl and his evangelistic personality. I'm more of the introvert. Half of my neighbors on this block showed up to that memorial.
Wow. Mm.
Several of them are Muslim that don't step foot in churches.
Wow.
They were at Calvary that night to
Wow.
celebrate his life
Mm.
because of the way he lived his life.
Mm. With
Mm-hmm.
intention, with purpose,
Yes,
always pointing to King
he
Jesus.
sure did.
And I felt it that night. It was so powerful. And then,
Praise
of
God.
course, to hear you and his children, grandchildren, just rise up and just talk about the man he was, not just on the pulpit, but at home with them. It was
Yes.
truly, truly inspiring. But okay, so from my own experience,
Mm-hmm.
having a loved one pass away, I know there's so much to do in the aftermath of
Yeah.
getting together, getting things together, getting a program together. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you can't let down completely until the funeral, the celebration of life, till all that is done, and
Mm-hmm.
family maybe who was in town now they go back home and maybe some of the calls and the texts kind of they slow down as well.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you, or whatever you want to share about when it really started to hit home? Because like you said, it was unexpected when it happened. Then you had to, kick in and get things together to celebrate him. But then when you could finally kind of breathe,
Mm.
what was that like?
For me, I would say, Bridget, so many people have said, oh my gosh, you stood well, you've done this. And I said, no, I'm not standing. God's carrying me. He's holding me up every step of the way. I won't take credit for that because if anybody would have told me that I would be here without him, I would have been like, beware, no, or that I would still be standing. And one of the things after Daryl passed that morning, later on in the day, I just felt the comfort of him say to me, I was just reminded, the day I said I do, Bridget, God knew I would be here. Because Psalms 39 says he knows our days, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So if he knows my days, he knew that February 17th at 5:45, my husband was going to take his last breath.
Mm.
And he knew that. So therefore, I know he's already made a way. And I said, God, I've stood on platforms all over this country and I've told people about how good you are, how faithful you are. Now, right now, I need you to be faithful to me and the children and get us through this. So your name is on the line. They need to see you shining through me. And I'm going to give you permission because I don't, what else do I have? Bridget, Peter said, oh, where else am I going?
Yeah.
Only you, Lord, have the words of life. And this came down to where your faith really meets the road, where it's really like either you believe him or you don't. It's the test of time that your life partner of almost 35 years, we did so much together, a church, and you step aside. And, I had to transition the church, something we started in our living room with 5 people. You transition, you take the instructions that Daryl left and prepare the person, prepare the church. We had a church that grieved. They're still grieving. They still miss their pastor, his voice, his leadership, but reminding them that even though he might not be here, he wouldn't want you stuck. He'd want you serving and being involved somewhere, because Calvary wasn't about Daryl. It was about Jesus. That, once again, that's who he was, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And just the impact of that, the example of that. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously I know, like you said, he's carrying you. And what I've seen you since, one of the things you said is I feel like my feet haven't hit the ground.
Not
Yeah.
yet.
And so how is he carrying you, what, 18 months or so after that?
One of the things the Lord had to teach me was, he said, Aimee, Daryl finished his work. He completed his task. His race was done. He fulfilled his purpose, but now you have to fulfill yours. And he said that was a season of your life. But in order for you to move forward into what I've called you to, I need you to be in a season of surrender. Bridget, God knows I thought that was a curse word for about a year. I'm like, who said surrender? Let's take it outside. And the Lord was like, Aimee, I need you to surrender. And I'm
Mhm.
like, and I remember one particular event, I was at the church, and I remember saying to the Lord, my hands were raised in worship and I'm praising. Unbeknownst to me, Bridget, a friend of mine had taken a picture of me in that service. My hands are up, my arms are up, and I'm praising. I remember I looked at my phone. I said, see, God, I have surrendered. I've given you everything. But in my heart, Bridget, I felt like he was asking for more. I
Mm.
kept hearing the song by Maverick City, you know, I give it all. And I'm like, what more do you want from me? And he said, Aimee, if you look at the picture, your arms are raised, but your hands are closed.
Mm.
He said, I need an open handed surrender.
Mm.
You're still holding on. I need you to surrender the woman you thought you were going to be.
Mm.
Though that's what you thought. But now I need you to step into the purposes and the callings that I've always had on your life. It's just that in the season before, you were stewarding another man's vision. And that's fine. His purpose is fulfilled. But now I need you to step into yours. And
Mm.
I need you to become the woman I need you to be. And in the process, I'm going to need your attitude, because that one ain't right. I don't like that one right
Mhm.
there. So I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay. So what I learned, Bridget, that in a season of surrendering, in order for there to be a surrender, there has to be an undoing.
Mm.
In order for there to be a becoming, there has to be an undoing. And God's had to undo so much of how I thought life would be, how I thought I would study the Bible the same way. It's different now. How I thought I would lead my children. It's different now. How I thought I would shepherd and lead people and speak and teach. It's very different. But I would have never been ready to handle that or step into that if I had not have released where I was.
Mm. Boy, but you could only surrender when you trust.
That part.
And
That.
even as I hear you speaking about going through that season and just the struggles,
Mm.
but then also how the Lord spoke to you so clearly. I hope this isn't a rabbit trail, but
No.
what I hear you saying is just it's reflective of how close you're walking to him. And that's, I'm sure, what has enabled you to surrender. So, talk to us about that. How do we draw close? Because
Mm.
there's somebody, I'm sure, people listening who's saying, "Boy, but I don't have that relate. Like I went through something similar. I went
Mm.
through something who I thought was going to take me out, but now I just feel lost. I feel like I can't hear him." But it sounds like you are still able to hear him and commune with him. So how do we draw close and really have that type of relationship with the Lord where we can hear him speaking and what he wants next from us?
That's so good. Bridget, that's a great question because I never thought about it in that context of me having this great relationship. But when you lose the one person that you feel is your life partner, I literally had to say, then God, right now, you're all I got. You're all I have. And I told people I developed something called carpet ministry, where I would be in my closet on my face. Then God, tell me what's next. Tell me how to lead my children. Tell me how to lead the household. Tell me how to steward the church and show up for the people. You're carrying me, but how do I even walk with them that are hurting? My grandchildren that missed him so much, Bridget, because we're a close family. So all of us, we lived together for amount of time during COVID. All of us lived here.
Wow.
All of my grandchildren, all of my kids, their dogs. It was chaos, chaos, crazy guys.
Yeah.
But even to help them and to remind them, because I saw what the enemy wanted to do. The enemy wanted my children to think and feel that they couldn't trust God.
Mm.
The enemy wanted to do that. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let him sneak in and try to get my children to be bitter against the God and the Father and the Jesus who their father loved till he took his last breath.
Mhm.
I wasn't going to do that. So that was going to require me leaning into the Lord and keeping my ear close to his mouth. Then,
Mhm.
God, what do I do next? I did not live beyond 2 days from now. I really didn't. He literally gave me grace for the next hour and the next hour and the next hour. And then it became grace for the next day and for the next day. And then it was like, okay, all right, God, I see what you're doing. Okay, all right, you're still good. I told people I felt like I was living in the good hard,
Mhm.
that I was the blessed and the broken. When you look at the story of Mephibosheth, right? Mephibosheth's feet was broken. He didn't cause it. It was a midwife that was carrying him and dropped him that caused his feet to be broken, Bridget. But then David remembered that there was a son of Jonathan and told them to go and get Mephibosheth and come sit him at the king's table. His feet were still broken, but he was still sitting in a place of prominence. He was still enjoying the goodness of the king, still in his presence. My heart might have been broken, but I was still in a good place. People, groceries showed up at my door for months at a time. People came through again and again and again for my children and I. There is a woman that has texted me praying hands for over a year since Daryl passed. I
Wow.
get, I get, I get it every morning
Mm.
as a reminder to let me know she's praying for me.
Mm. Mhm.
That right there, that was my foundation that I could just stand on Jesus, that he didn't fail me.
Mm. He's so faithful. And I think
Yes.
I need to be, and I know our listeners need to be reminded that he is faithful because
Yes.
sometimes, I mean, it would have been easy for you to say, God, how,
Yes.
and maybe focus on the loss and not on the goodness. I mean, it
Yes.
would have been easy. And I'm sure maybe there were times you were maybe even for a split second tempted,
Sure.
but we know that he is faithful and he can be
He
trusted.
is.
And I just feel like we need to, your story gives testimony to that, but we just need to say that for those
Yeah.
who are forgetting that he can be trusted and he is good
Amen.
despite our circumstances.
Yes, in the midst of it all, he's still a good God. I remember as you were talking about preparing the program, and so many people, Bridget, when I tell you it was effortless, the team at the church, everybody we asked, will you speak? Are you kidding me? Yes. Yes, people, his relatives flying in from out of town, so many pastors, and the men that he mentored, his spiritual sons in the faith, they showed up giving countless testimony to how he ministered to them. He always found room to pour into their lives. And I remember as we were preparing the program that week, and they were going through everything, and I felt the Lord say to me, I want you to speak. And I'm like, God, that's Bridget, I'm telling you now. I was like, I don't, God, I don't want to do that. That's not typical. That's really not normal. You don't normally do that. The next day, Aimee, I want you to speak. I want you to share. Okay, God. And then when I said, yes, I'll share, then the next part came. Now I want you to sing. What? Nobody does that. Bridget, I'm telling you, I wrestled with the Lord. And, most people be like, you wrestled. I did because it was uncommon. And I said, God, but nevertheless, I'll do what you asked me to do. I'll do what you asked me to do. And a friend of mine said, shortly after, another woman's husband had passed, and she played that portion where I worshiped during the memorial as an encouragement to somebody else. But I could not have seen that in the hardest time of my life, giving God a yes, that all my life he's been faithful. Yeah. Through finding out, the childhood, the adoption, surviving all the other things and the story and the upcoming, the hard birth and all of this, but he's still been faithful. Mm-hmm. He's been faithful to the end.
Amen. Amen. I just want to know, when are you going to write your book? Because your life gives testimony to the goodness of God in so many different ways. And I just love how you speak from that place and you love to encourage others to be reminded of God's goodness.
Yes.
And you're not just saying it, but you have testimony of it. You really can say, this is how he's met me and this is how he can meet you too. And it's just a blessing. Any final words of encouragement about how we can find peace in times where we don't expect, the unexpected happens. How do we find peace there? Yeah.
Peace in the midst of the storm. One of the things I will say for sure, and I know it, I'm going to say, but they're going to think it's cliche, but I really mean this. When the storm comes, remember, the winds and waves still know his name. He's the one that stood in the boat and said, peace, be still. And what I've come to understand is, Bridget, he may not calm the storm around me, but he could step up and calm it in me. He couldn't stop the fact that Daryl was gone, but he bought me peace so that I could sleep just a little bit better at night. And those times, Bridget, when I would feel like, God, I 34 years, I wanted more. I wanted us to grow old and do different things. And it's what I wanted. But I learned to say, but nevertheless, let it be a nevertheless, and let him be your firm foundation. Get a relationship with Jesus Christ. I can't say that enough, Bridget. It's our relationship with Jesus Christ that when the difficult things in this life show up, that's what's going to get us through. Because you have a God that loves you, that sees you, and steps into the middle of the hard, in the middle of the messy. When it's messy and it's complicated, he'll come in, he'll comfort you, he'll heal you. And if you give him the opportunity, he'll give you a message and maybe even a ministry out of the middle of the mess. But we have to trust him, get close to him. And he can handle your tough questions. He can handle your anger. He can handle your attitude. Listen, as much as I roll my eyes and I still have them, he and I have the tough conversations. He's big enough to handle it. He's not angry with you. He's not mad at you. He can handle the hard and the messy. You just have to give it to him. Get close, stay close to Jesus. Don't compromise on that in a prayer
Amen.
life.
Amen. Amen.
Yep.
Amen. Well, Aimee, thank you so much for sharing out of the really the overflow of your heart and your ministry and your life. And I know the ministry you lead will still want to link that as well, so people get in contact with you either way. If they want to have you maybe, encourage their people because you've encouraged
Mhm.
us so much today. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Bridget. I appreciate you. You and Gibson both. God bless you, friend.